Welcome back to Story Rush 2. Today we dive into one of the darkest and most chilling chapters in American crime history. This is the story of John Wayne Gacy, a man who lived a double life so shocking that even decades later, his name still sends shivers down the spine. By day, he was the friendly neighbor, the community volunteer, even the man who dressed up as a clown to bring laughter to children's parties. By night, however, he was something else entirely, a predator, hiding his victims in the shadows of his own home. This is the tale of the man who became known across the world as the Killer Clown. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. On the surface, his childhood seemed ordinary, but behind closed doors, he grew up in a storm of violence and neglect. His father was an alcoholic, often cruel and abusive. Gacy longed for approval, but was constantly criticized and beaten down. This mixture of humiliation and rejection would shape the dark mind of a boy who, to the outside world, appeared just like any other. As Gacy grew older, he learned the art of disguise not just with makeup and costumes, but with personality. He could charm people, make them laugh, and convince them he was trustworthy. In fact, he became so skilled at playing the role of the good neighbor that no one ever imagined the horrors he was capable of. Got married, started a family, and became active in local politics. To his community, he was a man who worked hard, cared for others, and even entertained children at hospitals and charity events dressed as Pogo the Clown. But under that cheerful mask lived a man with uncontrollable desires and a growing darkness. His first known brushes with the law came in the late 1960s, when he was arrested for sexually assaulting teenage boys. He served time in prison but managed to manipulate the system, gaining early release. Afterward, he moved into a quiet neighborhood near Chicago, where he began building what seemed like an average suburban life. What no one realized was that beneath his home, under the floors and in the crawlspace, he was constructing a secret graveyard. The terrifying part of Gacy's story is how ordinary he appeared. Neighbors saw him hosting parties, cooking barbecues, volunteering, even joining the local Democratic Party. But at night, he lured young men and boys into his house with promises of work, money, or simply a drink. Some were strangers. Others were boys who trusted him. Once inside, Gacy would use his infamous handcuff trick, pretending to perform a magic act. He'd show them a pair of handcuffs, lock his own wrists, and magically slip free. Then, he'd convince the boys to try. Once the cuffs snapped shut on his victims, there was no escape. It's estimated that between 1972 and 1978, John Wayne Gacy killed at least 33 young men and boys. He buried most of them in the crawlspace beneath his own house. Imagine that while neighbors were mowing their lawns, children were riding bikes, and families were eating dinner, bodies were hidden just a few feet away, decomposing under his floorboards. The smell sometimes grew so bad that neighbors complained, but Gacy brushed it off with excuses, blaming faulty plumbing or dead animals. His charm was so convincing that no one pressed further. What makes Gacy's story even more disturbing is the duality of his life. One day, he'd be seen laughing in his clown costume, bringing joy to kids at hospitals. The next night, he'd be committing unimaginable crimes in his home. That contrast between clown makeup and murder cemented his infamy as the Killer Clown. For years, his crimes went unnoticed, hidden beneath layers of charm, lies, and fear. Parents trusted him, co-workers respected him, and politicians welcomed him at events. But in December of 1978, his mask finally began to crack. A 15-year-old boy named Robert Piest went missing, after telling his mother he was going to meet a man about a summer job. That man was John Wayne Gacy. The disappearance triggered a police investigation. Detectives quickly discovered that Gacy had a criminal history involving young boys. They began watching him closely. During surveillance, they noticed strange behavior. Gacy spending hours driving aimlessly at night, visiting graveyards, and acting increasingly paranoid. Eventually, police obtained a search warrant for his home. What they found would horrify the world. As they entered the house, the stench of death became overwhelming. Investigators searched the crawlspace and discovered the first human remains. In that moment, the friendly clown image was shattered forever. Over the next weeks, police pulled body after body from beneath his home. The count kept rising until it reached 29 in the crawlspace, with several more victims found elsewhere. The trial of John Wayne Gacy became one of the most infamous in American history. The sheer scale of his crimes, combined with his public persona, shocked the nation. The idea that someone who entertained children at hospitals could also be a serial killer was almost too horrific to believe, but the evidence was undeniable. Victims' families filled the courtroom, listening to chilling details of how their loved ones were lured, trapped, and murdered. During the trial, Gacy tried to play multiple roles, sometimes denying the crimes, sometimes blaming others, and even attempting to claim insanity. But the jury saw through his lies. In March of 1980, he was convicted of 33 murders and sentenced to death. He spent 14 years on death row, during which time he showed little remorse. In fact, he even painted disturbing portraits of clowns, many of which were sold to collectors. His final statement before execution in 1994 was chillingly cold. "Kiss my ass." The legacy of John Wayne Gacy left deep scars on American society. He wasn't just another criminal. He represented the terrifying idea that evil can hide in plain sight. A neighbor, a volunteer, even someone trusted with children could secretly be a monster. His story became a warning about appearances, teaching us that predators often look like the least suspicious person in the room. Even today, the image of a clown has never fully recovered from the shadow of John Wayne Gacy. For many people, clowns went from being symbols of fun and laughter to figures of fear and nightmares. Horror movies and books often draw inspiration from his case, making him one of the most infamous figures in true crime history. But beyond the horror, the story of Gacy carries a deeper lesson. It's about the importance of listening to small warning signs. Neighbors smelled something strange, parents felt uneasy, people noticed odd behavior. But because Gacy was charming, polite, and well-liked, those warning signs were dismissed. The tragedy is that dozens of young lives might have been saved if those early suspicions had been taken more seriously. The story of John Wayne Gacy is not just about a killer, it's about the victims. Each of those 33 boys and young men had families, dreams, and futures that were stolen from them. They are the ones we must remember. Their names deserve to be spoken, their stories deserve to be told, and their lives matter more than the man who took them away. Today, people still visit the sites connected to Gacy's crimes. Some call it morbid curiosity. Others see it as a reminder of how evil can exist behind the mask of normality. Books, documentaries, and films continue to revisit his story. But always at the center is the shocking question: how could someone live such a double life for so long without being caught? The truth is chilling. John Wayne Gacy thrived because he was skilled at pretending. He understood human psychology enough to gain trust, to blend in, and to hide behind a mask of kindness. And perhaps that is the scariest part of all, that evil does not always look evil. Sometimes it smiles, it shakes your hand, it entertains your children, and it hides right next door. So the next time you hear about John Wayne Gacy, remember that behind the clown makeup was a man who lived two lives, one that the world could see, and one that was buried, literally beneath his house. He will forever be remembered as the killer clown, a figure who turned laughter into fear and trust into betrayal. And while his name is infamous, the true weight of his story lies in remembering the lives he destroyed and the lessons we must never forget. This was the story of John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown who terrified America. A chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones who look just like us.